So let's take four kind of general categories that came out of your brainstorm and talk about who enables, funds, and administrates and measures these things. So I took food safety, infrastructure funding, grants and subsidies, and small operations. And what I'm hearing from this conversation is in terms of enabling things, it's at the state and the federal level, but it varies. It varies based on where the food is being sold. So what the outlet is. And size of the producer. So, and that's regulation of small production, so I'm going to put state and federal. But then what is the funding then probably comes from the state for the inspectors or the parish.
That's what I couldn't get clarity on.
They're both. Because state is the one above, and they have inspectors, but then the parish also has a little offset that they inspect too. It's both at the same time. I'm not sure who gets what.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can tell you who what. If you are, like, I'm a honey producer and I have a licensed honey house, I'm inspected by the state of Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals. If you're a local restaurant or grocery store or anybody that sells food, you're inspected by the local parish sanitarium, which works out of the health unit.
You're also inspected by the state. The state has to approve all the permits and plans. The
Right.
state definitely has a part in it. There's two, I mean, they both play
Mm-hmm.
into it.
But the parish health units are under the State Department of Health.
Right.
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 So, and then these probably, yeah, at the state level, they're probably measuring what the impact is or how well these people do their jobs, or maybe are they measuring it at all?
I have no idea.
All right, so we're going to put some question marks. How about infrastructure funding? So funding for infrastructure for agriculture or for local foods. That was one of the things, saying that there can be there's some business incentives. I think you mentioned a program to me about.
Oh yeah, well there's just recently, the last couple of years, or this past year, a couple of acts were passed by legislation, through legislation at the state level, both the farm to school, but then this would be the urban agricultural.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really sure, I'm not that familiar, to be honest, with that law that was passed specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But that came out of the state.
Okay. And then grants and subsidies. What grants and subsidies affect your lives, and where do they come from in terms of your local food lives?
We got like a L'Oreal grant, which gave us a bunch of recycled like materials to build garden beds. And
Okay.
tables.
My high school got a national farm to school grant.
So,
We've had Blue Cross and Rapides Foundation. Those are state or local? Rapides is local. Blue Cross and Rapides, those are local.
Those are non-governmental.
yeah. So sometimes the funders, or sometimes those things come from things that are not government, but yeah, they could be policy.
Right. Like sometimes like big companies have that foundation, like they are being governmentally mandated.
In the packet that you all received as part of participating, you saw the CARP study, was the local food infrastructure study. That was a federally funded study. However, I think there was and then the other study that was in your packet was the state. And then the Ken Meter study and the on Base Camp was a privately funded study. So it's amazing that all these different resources can come from different funded sources. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was going to help you out. So, okay. My next question is about what you want to change, but just by a raise of hands, do folks in the room think that the food system as it is needs to change? Okay, so now next slide. what I'm going to do is we have all sorts of ideas up in here. There's some over there. There's some hung up. I'm also going to have a marker. You can write up your ideas. But one of the things is to know what you have. You're not going to get policy done unless you have a network, unless you have a group, unless you make an agreement and have a plan about going forward. So one of the things that you do when you are doing policy work is you see what people want to do. So I'm going to give you all dots. And again, I'm going to make you get up so you won't fall asleep. But also, sometimes votes by everybody raising their hand gets a little funky. So find the idea, or any idea, of something that you want to change, and go and put a dot by it. Or 6 dots, or trade people for dots, or 1 dot. So you can use your dots however you want. But by putting the dots down, you're saying that this is what I think is important for policy change. So, and if what you think is important is not up there, write it down somewhere and put your dot there. All right. So, and maybe do this for about 5 minutes, talk about it, and then have dinner?
Yeah.
Okay.
We put them or not, who was it they think?
What?
Or where are we putting the dots?
So there's kind of these ideas here. We can put stuff down here. I'll write stuff down for folks, or then any one of these sticky notes.
Can I just put a dot on John's head because that's where a lot of knowledge is?
Here. Okay, John's head. Blanket law?
Yeah, you know, whenever like an agricultural law is put in, but it pertains to a larger level,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Adaptive law. It can be kind of a quote. I just don't have a better. Sorry, had to do that one.
No, that's okay. All right.
I like the blanket laws too, Kinsey.
Blanket law dealing with agriculture.
So like the U.S. Farm Bill, right?
Yeah, so you know, holding small agricultural farms accountable on the same level that you would
There.
large. I'd be happy.
Mm-hmm. So, or I'm going to put this, i.e. big and small treated the same.
Oh, I don't know if I like that.
Big and small treated the same?
Not.
Mhm.
Right now they are. Right now they are. I don't want that.
Okay, I was like, you might have blows on that one.
How about requiring local chain stores to buy local?
My healthy, raised, salmonella resistant.
Okay. Requiring.
We could do that legislatively, couldn't we? We could pass a local ordinance requiring them to buy local food, a certain amount.
That's where I approached 2 years ago. That started the whole thing.
Right. You can only get so far at farmers market, you know, with egg selling and everything. Selling them all at once.
I have, I think I have about 18 dozen quails at home. Because my quail likes these. And Chris won't pickle them. He doesn't have time. And my
Is there a
pickle-
place where
I'm not big on pickling.
municipalities are purchasing, required to purchase or committed to purchase 10% or a certain percentage of their food locally?
That's up there under institutional
Do
processing,
you know anybody
purchasing.
doing that?
Yeah, the county where I'm from.
Really?
That's
Yeah.
what we've been talking and trying to do that here for a while. And, we would love to see our food policy council move in that direction. It's a really tangible goal. Is that that's a goal, not necessarily a,
No, it's a policy.
okay.
It's a policy. So if they buy any food, they have to at least the 10% of it has to be local.
Yeah.
And so the thing with that is how transparent it is and how much somebody makes sure that they're doing it.
Is there a distributor they're buying it from, or are they buying it from the local farmers? Or do you know?
Sometimes they buy it from the local farmer, and there's also at least 2 distributors in Washtenaw County.
How big a county is that?
Um,
What's the population?
The population is, I want to say, about 150,000, but the majority of that 150,000 is in Ann Arbor. So 100,000 is in Ann Arbor, 20,000 is in Ypsilanti, and the rest is spread out. Hello.
I see you discovered we have parishes here instead of counties.
I know, I said that. I was told I could.
You're the first person I ever seen do that. Because we're the only state that has parishes.
Yeah,
You know why? Huh?
like I said, my
You know
cousin's
why?
in New Orleans.
You know
No, why?
You don't know why?
I don't know why.
Because of the Catholic Church.
Oh.
The Catholic Church has parishes,
Yeah.
not counties.
That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Because our roots were
Yeah.
largely French here.
Yeah, I'm for food safety too.
Mm-hmm. John, what time are we at?
Pardon?
What time are we at?
It's about 6:35.
Okay, so we're done at 8?
8:30.
8:30. Oh, we got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, for dinner, I'll probably say a few things about dinner, but then, but we can work through dinner or take a break or whatever you think is best.
Okay.
Generally, what's happened is we'll get dinner and just people will talk about stuff. It's a good opportunity just to ask questions to the group and stuff.
Okay.
To get to know folks. And this is Carolyn. She is with Diana. Is just a guest. So, but she's involved in Grant Parish.
Okay.
So,
All right.
so when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't we bring people? Okay. I'm going to get through at least the advocacy bit, I think, because that'll get through this, and then we'll go through the, like advocacy versus lobbying and those 4 questions. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, a couple more minutes for everybody to put down their dots. So, and if you're facilitating meetings, these are kind of great tricks. Having people stand where they feel about a certain thing. The sticky notes are a great way to have people brainstorm about things they might not be familiar with and don't want to raise their hand about. And then the dots are great to kind of see have people have private communication so that they can vote for things, especially if you're in a charged situation. So I've had meetings where I was facilitating and a husband and wife were at the same table and they really disagreed, but they wouldn't say it in front of each other. But if you gave them dots, they'd really say what they thought. So a couple little tricks. So looking around, infrastructure funding, big. Regulation, like that regulation of small operations and that they shouldn't be treated the same as big operations is also in here. And then things about requiring local purchasing seem to have a lot of dots on them. So I know John had talked about recording all this and then that you have a food policy council. So these might be great places to start because with the group of people in the room, you have a lot of agreement. And you'll see that most of your dots are clustered together, not spread out like the chicken pox. So, all right, so now that, and if you have a food policy council, or if you're going through a community food assessment, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll go through something like this and you'll really decide, okay, what do we want to change? And then you have to get into advocacy. And advocacy is an umbrella term about lobbying, but also many, many, many other activities. It's not just lobbying, because some people can't lobby, like an extension agent usually cannot lobby. Some people who will work for certain, if they work for government or they work for a school district or whatnot, they really, it's probably not great for their job. But you can promote the cause through political and non-political avenues. I'm going to give you some examples of that. So one of the things you can do is just monitoring what's going on. So one of the things that my job to do as part of this food policy network is to monitor state legislation. And we actually have a lobbyist who helps us do that. And then also, there's also relationship building, because your locally elected parish councils, or do you have townships if you're rural? Do you have villages or cities? What? Towns?
Incorporated or not.
Towns are incorporated or not. So those folks may one day be in state legislature, and they may one day be asked about food policy. If they have a relationship with you and they know that you know about food, you want to be their bench. So inviting your local town council to a food summit or event. Maybe it's just that you're showcasing local food. We're gonna have a big dinner and it's all gonna be about local food. Kind of the instinct is we're just gonna invite all the folks we know who know about food advocacy, and we're all gonna have a party and it'll be fun. Also invite other people who can change things to the fun. Serve them good food, show them what it's all about. And that's also part of raising awareness, and also getting into education, even educating about what the food system is, where it can be improved, what we all can do as individuals. That is powerful, because the more people know, the more then it grows. Lobbying is a very specific thing. That is when you are going to an elected or appointed official and asking them to vote in a particular way. So that is different than saying, come to our farmers market for this fundraising event, or having an education program. It's that you're asking them to vote a specific way on a specific regulation or rule. Even handing them a fact sheet about things in the local food system, something like this, the Michigan Good Food Charter, which I'll share with you a little later. That's not advocacy. That's not lobbying. That's advocacy. So next, let's go around the room, and I'm going to take some notes. What do you or your organization do right now that's some form of advocacy?
Do weekly activities with kids where they learn about food.
So weekly education activities with kids?
I'm a big education person. I talk until I'm blue in the face about why it's important to know your farmer and buy local, and why you should be able to grow it yourself, that kind of stuff. And then yes.
Okay, so yes.
A raised bed, 2 raised beds, put it in public housing. Good. It looks better and better each time. Big food project, who's going to put something in, it gets better each time. And as the children realize it's food, more people are coming and taking the food.
Great.
There's a few people, Anne and Emily's, are working on getting schools and school districts to purchase more local food. So advocating directly with food service directors, but also PTA, PTO, yeah, so developing those marketing materials as part of the advocacy plan. There's also an organization, I don't want to speak too much, but there's an organization called Together Louisiana that is worked, and some of our food policy council members are working with them to promote the Healthy Retail Act, which was passed by Governor Jim but didn't make the final funding cut.
I go to schools, up in the library, observation hives, preaching the values of money. That's my doctor.
Capacity building for small nonprofits.
Okay.
We have a community table at a local farmer's market that introduces foods that aren't common in the area. Among
All right.
Started a community garden done at our farmer's market. We're doing a lot of kids and education and having a workshop on the 24th.
So here we go. You're already advocates. So, and anybody who didn't say anything, if you just talk to somebody about local food, whether it may be your family, it may be your friends, it may be your coworkers, or it may be strangers, you're doing advocacy. So you don't have to go out and be a huge personality and take over Facebook or Twitter or the internet. Just do what you feel passionate about in the way that you feel comfortable, because not all of us can be that huge, big person. Also, some of us are just the, for lack of a better word, the worker bees. You know, some of us are the queen and the loud ones, and then others of us are the ones who do the heavy lifting, or who get the events running, or who put up the flyer, or who interact with the kids and things like that. And that's all part of it. So advocacy doesn't need to be a big, loud, vocal thing. And I know a lot of people are often scared by that. And also, it doesn't ask, I had a conversation with, we had a meeting of the Michigan network of food councils, and it was a food council from Lansing, which is our capital, and they said, actually, when we first formed, we didn't invite anybody who was in government, and we really stayed away from advocacy. We wanted to do programming, because we didn't want anyone to feel like they weren't included, and we didn't want it to be controversial. And looking back 5 years later, that's a mistake, because we don't have people at the table that we really need in order to move things forward, and people that we have had come in from government, it hasn't been as bad as we thought it would be. And it's a matter of finding also those right folks who fit in. But that's one of the things is a lot of times when you say, as an organization, we're going to take on advocacy, we're going to take on this change out, so you feel like you're going to leave people out. It has to be a conflict, it has to be a fight. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. If we all agree on these same values of what is good food, what is local food, and this is important, then you find a way that everybody can contribute. And some of that is about structure, and we'll get into that a little later. So how elected officials work, but this is also the thing is, sometimes it's that you have to get to those elected officials and how do they really work. And this is a quote from the Michigan Council for Maternal Child and Health. Elected officials don't have power, they count power. They depend on advocates to help them negotiate a balance between competing interests. And then the next slide, this is from the lobbyist who assists our network. They do something because they don't do something just because it's the right thing to do. They do it because it's something right and feasible. It can get done, it can get passed. It's an advocate's job to educate those officials about what the right things are, and then help create that political atmosphere that makes it feasible for the right thing to be done. So you have to work on two spectrums. There's the people who are working directly with and trying to influence the policymakers, and then there are other folks who are working with the constituents, and this may be sometimes where some people feel, if you feel more comfortable doing the education and the programming and not the advocacy, that's important stuff too. It's very important, because then you create the political climate that lets this change happen, that you're not a lone wolf crying out in the night saying, somebody please change this. Because what elected officials do is they go back to the people who elected them and they see, they take a pulse. And so this is how you help. So one of the things you have to do in policy, if you could advance the slide, is you have to show up. So you have to take some action. And these are the most effective ways. So on the federal level, phone calls. Call your senator. Call your elected representative. Every time we've had somebody come to our network representing U.S. Senator Debbie Stabena's office, who is one of the biggest advocates for, I think, for local food system change on the federal level, they've said, if you call, that really makes a difference. If you can't call, email or letters, and if it has to be a form letter, it's fine, but the most powerful letter is that there's something personal in there. Even if you just write a small paragraph that you tack on to show that you as an individual have a stake in this. At the state level, and this is from Michigan, and so you'll need to ground truth this with your political climate here in Louisiana, 10 constituent letters is a mandate. So if you can get 10 people to write a letter, and it comes into that office, then there's action, and they will perk up. And this is on the local level, so parish or local, and I've, as a career urban planning consultant, have sat through countless of these meetings. If 10 people show up from that community and are impassioned about something, and this has been, whether it's been Detroit or whether it's been Sharon Township, which is, it's, 10,000 people, if anything. Then if 10 people show up, it's a mandate. Like, we got to do something about this. We can't let this be. Yeah, well, or just even, I've been at meetings where it's been a bunch of people on a food policy council came in and said, we were doing a master plan for city of Ypsilanti. It's 20,000 people. Ypsilanti? Excellent. 10 people came to our open house and said, we want community gardens, and we want community gardens to be legal and all of them to be able to have hoop houses. And they all, to a word, said that. So, that's in the plan. Because they showed up, they articulated why it's good for the community. It's in there. It also fit with the general things, but that's the power. You have to show up. And at that local level, if you are from that place and you show up and say, I want this, and if you just show up, the one of you, and you show up at every meeting and you say the same thing, sometimes you're going to get discounted. But if you show up with 10 of you or 15 of you, then it's different. And then also you pick the stories that are the most compelling. You pick those representatives who really are the values of what you're trying to do.
Like the 80-year-old kid that presents a business plan to grow in the community garden and sell at farmers market?
Yeah. So, all right, so now before dinner, we're going to do the 4 essential questions, though, of an advocate. So the first thing you need to know is, what do you want? And it's really, what do you want to have happen? So not, I want the food system to change, because your local parish council is going to look at you like, I can't do that. So what do you want them to do? The next question is, who can give it to you? If it's something that happens on the federal level, it's not, don't go to the state. If it's something that's in your county health department that needs to change, go to, or your parish health department, go to your parish council. Who can give it to you? And that needs some thought. Then, what do they need to hear? And as food advocates, sometimes we make the mistake of telling people what we like to hear. But they may be different than us. They may have a different experience than us. They may not know all the circumstances. And so think about what do they want to hear in their context. Where I come from, it's all about jobs. Michigan's gone through an economic tsunami, and we are finally kind of coming out, but it's still all about the jobs. So if I can talk about local food as an economic development driver, that it's our second largest industry in the state, that if 10% of folks, there was a study by out of MSU that said if we only bought just 10% of our local food, that would mean millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs. That's the message I'm going to take, rather than this is the right thing to do because this kid in Detroit can't get a healthy meal. So, and then who do they need to hear it from? I may not be the best person, especially if I am going to, like, am I the right person to show up at your local council meeting and ask for something?
Not from Michigan.
No, exactly. So who's that right person? And a lot of times also that's the person that somebody has a relationship with, somebody that they know and trust. And so sometimes within your group, think who has the best relationship with that policymaker or with that bureaucrat. Who are they best going to respond to? And sometimes also is that you speak their language. If you are someone who works in health and you need to talk to the health department, that's probably the best person to talk to rather than maybe the person who is a school teacher, because there's a certain lingo. What we're going to do during dinner is find a group and then think about one of these actions or inactions that's up here. And then go back to those 4 questions and write answers to them. Just apply that knowledge. It doesn't have to be something that you're going to run out and do. Can be purely theoretical. So amongst yourselves, find somebody who has a like issue as you, and then answer those 4 questions. And then after we eat for a while, we'll report out.